Because they want everybody to belong to the government. So,
Power is all that power.
So, yeah,
It's basis of communism.
it's statism, because it's statism. Go ahead, Billy.
No, that's what I was going to say, basically that the last appeal is to the government, not to God. And philosophically, it has to end with the government. There can't be anything beyond the government.
And according to the Declaration of Independence, where are our rights derived?
From our creator.
From our, not our government?
Unfortunately, President Obama, no.
From our Creator. Yes.
Yeah, you know, when you quoted all these things in the Bible, and I don't deny, I don't agree with my understanding. There was also a lot of reference to John Locke, particularly the Declaration of Independence, that a lot of the language came from him.
Actually, the language of the Declaration, almost the exact language was written by Sam Adams 5 years earlier.
Yeah, and it was just brushed out. In fact, originally it said life, liberty, and the pursuit of property, and then in committee that was headed by
Pursuit of happiness.
what?
Yeah, they changed it to
They
Pursuit
changed
of
it, saying the
happiness.
property, that sounds kind of crass or whatever, changed it to pursuit of happiness. Also, somebody, you know, that doesn't get mentioned a lot because he went a little too far, was the later Secretary of the Treasury, who studied the British system and came up with the idea of 3 branches of government and 2 houses. And not that they followed his thing exactly, but those concepts didn't make it into the final Constitution. And even though everybody says Madison was the father of the Constitution, he came up with a Virginia plan that was rejected, and it wasn't the final version.
He did. And Hamilton came up with his own plan that he wanted.
And that was rejected.
That was also
Partly,
rejected.
but
So there was
some of it
much
wasn't.
compromise that took place, yes. But the ideas of where these ideas came from, where their backgrounds came from, what was going on in the nation. You're right, they came from a lot of places. They came from John Locke. They came from the understanding of British rule. But even going back to the Magna Carta,
Well, that's why the British decided that the king was not absolute.
that the king was
In
not
1215.
absolute. And as you go to then British common law, which is what the colonists understood themselves to live under, you start to see the rights of man. But these ideas weren't new.
No, I'm not saying that.
They weren't new. These notations are actually in Jefferson's books. Every one of those, and they're also, they were notations, and if you have a Jeffersonian Bible, you'll actually see where his notes were on the understanding of what liberty was. The understanding, many of these are found for his writing of the Virginia Constitution, when he starts to write the Virginia Constitution. Yes?
Could you just briefly address the issue of Christianity versus deism regarding the founders?
Okay. There are many who say, and I've done a lot of research on this, many who say that the founders were deists. And there were some founders who did hold a view. They weren't sure about a Christian God, Jesus and redemption. But many of our founders did. But what they did, in the days of the founders, churches focused on the law in order to convict, and then focused on the grace. About 90% of sermons preached during the 16th to 17th centuries and 18th centuries were preached 90% from the Old Testament, the law, to, and then 10% from the New Testament, the grace. So while it looks like they're deists, the truth is they're just representing what they saw in church. And most of governmental understanding of law, government setups, were found in the Old Testament. It's the history of Israel. So you see Moses is setting up the government that Jethro tells him how to do, which is actually very interesting. Which way? Wrong way. How Moses sets up, this comes out of Exodus 18, starting in 20. How Moses sets up the government of Israel. Then Israel has a bunch of judges, and they do what's right in their own eyes. And then they anoint a king. And the first king, well, he wasn't all that great under the eyes of God. David then established, and the very interesting about David is David not only is the throne established in David, David actually sets up a government, tribes, officials, a secretary, a treasury. It's really very interesting. He sets up an entire government right before Solomon takes the throne. So when they were looking at government, they were looking towards the Old Testament. When they were quoting the biblical aspects, they were quoting from the Old Testament because that's where government was and that's where the law was. But that isn't to say that they didn't have. In fact, I've heard people say that George Washington was a deist. I can't believe that, because if you look at his prayer book, you will notice how he claims in his prayer book, quote, under the blood of the Lamb, end quote. I don't know too many deists who use that phrase.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to Washington, it's down first. It can't be anything out about Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Jeffersonian Bible.
Bible, that's right.
When they take out any reference to the divinity of Christ and things like that.
And miracles,
and I'm not
yes.
saying that to put down,
Yeah.
I love Thomas Jefferson,
Mhm.
but, you know,
But yes, he did.
you
He's,
should whitewash that, you know?
no, I did. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Most of a lot of this comes out of it. He absolutely, Jefferson absolutely had an issue. You can see it, that he was trying to balance. He believed in the God of the Old Testament. That's very obvious. The miracles. He believed in the philosophy of Christ. He actually has a lot of them written down. The miracles and the deity, he's not sure about. But then you have, some people will say Benjamin Franklin, but if you look at Franklin's later life, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that he was not a deist. So our founders, many of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, I think I counted 3 or 4 who were actually preachers, pastors of churches.
And when you say deist, you're saying somebody who does not believe in the divinity of Christ?
Well, basically they believe in a creator God, the God of nature, if you will, and they've called them deists, but they don't necessarily believe in their Christian background. But I am going to throw out this question, this statement to you. I don't believe America is a Christian nation. Nations can't be, by the definition of Christian. The people make that decision by who they choose to follow, what philosophy they choose to follow. There are no Christian nations anywhere. Because there are no... A Christian is about a personal relationship. That's the way I've always seen it. Nations don't have personal relationships. Yes?
I'm a teacher, and I put this whole thing with vouchers now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just put vouchers. I want people to send their kids to wherever they feel they're doing the best education.
Could you speak up,
But
please?
looking at it this way, and they've been lying to the teachers by saying that, oh, we give the money to the schools, and they don't even have to follow guidelines and do what we do and test the way we test. And yet, if you accept government money, yeah, you sure have to toe the line. I went to a Christian school as a child. She never accepted one penny because she did not want to have to run that school by government rule. And we're going to step over, I mean, I don't know now. I'm wondering, are they a good thing or are they a bad thing? Because religion is left in this country, as far as in our education system, might get wiped out by the fact that now if there's the funding for these vouchers, they're going to take over, what rights the schools have to the religion, the private schools.
I think Dan has an answer to that.
It's a conceptual argument. You just said what most people believe, government money. It's not government money. It's our money. It's our tax money. And that's the spin that the teachers union and the left has been imposing on us for hundreds of years. It's our money. We give it to the government as we see fit. The philosophy now is it's the government's money, and they're going to tell you how you're going to spend it and what you can do with it. So it's an outrage. There's nothing in any constitution that says you have to send your children to a government school. Nothing.
But if the government, well, like you said, it's our money though, but if the way the government says if they're going to give you their money, you're going to have to do it our way. And people don't understand this.
Well, people need to see more of those movies like Nullification, read the book Nullification, and understand the real relationship.
But our kids need to learn it too in the schools, because like when I teach the flag salute, they don't understand it. They don't. I say your God, my God. It doesn't matter who's God. It's a moral compass. It doesn't have to. But don't take God totally out of it. And they're not getting taught. They're not. I mean, it's not.
Of course not. The The goal of the left in the education establishment is not education. It's indoctrination. What they want are docile masses of citizens who won't argue when they impose new laws on us. That's the truth. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
Anyone else?